everyone. This is Where We Land, a podcast bringing you stories of immigration and multicultural identity. I'm Luciana.
And I'm Claudia. We're sisters and we're originally from Peru.
In this episode, we discuss the challenges of explaining who you are as an immigrant. It's a fine balance between wanting to share yourself with others and avoiding being negatively labeled.
We also talk about mispronouncing words, binders versus notebooks, and the Super Bowl.
Here's our conversation.
To start us off, it's culture clash flashback. This is a culture clash we experienced in the past. Mine is, well, today I have kind of a story because this one can't be summed up.
All right.
So I just have to tell it.
Buckle up.
That's right. I'm in college. I'm in econ class. And the teacher calls on me to give my opinion on these two papers we had read. One of the papers was written by someone with an easy last name, probably like Adam Smith or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the last name where it's like, oh, you know how to say that in Spanish, right? You say Smith.
Right.
So when I talk about it in the class, I don't say Smith with my American accent. I say Smith, right?
Good. Adam Smith.
Yes. But the other asshole that wrote the paper was John Maynard Keynes. And I didn't even think about this, but I'm talking, I'm giving my opinion. And then right before I say the name, I'm like, how do you say Keynes in Spanish? How do Peruvians pronounce Keynes?
Like you were thinking of this as you're reading it. Okay.
Yeah, as I was talking.
But in real time. Yeah.
Yes, but I had to say it. I had no time. I was running out of time. So I just said Keynes with my best Peruvian accent. I was like, Keynes, right? Because it's spelled Keynes, so Keynes.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, how would a Peruvian say Keynes? And I was like, Keynes. No one says anything. There's no reaction. I'm like, great, got away with it. This is it. We're rolling. As the class goes on, everyone else starts to give their opinions on the readings. And every other motherfucker in the classroom is saying gayness.
Gayness.
Gayness. And I was like, fuck me. That's how you say it in Spanish? That's how we're saying his name? We're butchering Keynes? Okay, got it.
Right.
Learned the name, said gayness the rest of my time in the class, of course. But it's this thing that happens where it's like, how do we pronounce this word here? Because I know how it's supposed to be said in English, but here in Peru, I just want to fit in. How am I supposed to say this word here? And sometimes you guess and you guess correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people, one time a friend asked me, he was getting soda, he was buying soda, and he's like, do you want a crush? And I was like, crush. And I was like, wait, I think I know. I think he means that orange soda, crush. I think that's what he, and I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's what it is. And sometimes you can guess it. But other times people, if there's no context, one time a girl asked me if I liked Beyonce. And I was like, what are you talking about? Are we talking about clothes? Are we talking about a brand of something? She was talking about Beyonce.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear you. I've had to make those game time decisions. And it's like a lot of pressure, because you just want to fit in.
And you don't want to make them embarrassed. And also of their pronunciation, because that's the established pronunciation here.
Yeah, and I think actually for me, mostly it was like, oh, I don't want to sound weird. I don't want to
sound like, oh, I know how to say it and you don't. Because that's not it.
Yeah.
The objective is, I just want to communicate with you.
Yeah.
So tell me how you say it in Spanish. And that's how I will say it. I will say gayness the rest of my career. That's fine. But just tell me how to say it so I'm not the weird one.
So we are in a similar vibe with the culture clash flashback this week because mine is also in a school setting.
Okay.
Binders versus notebooks.
Binders.
So binders is what we used here when we were in elementary school. So fun. I loved it.
Yeah, loose pages.
Loose pages. You just write, turn it in. That was it. When we moved to Peru, the big culture clash was everybody used a notebook, but it was a really established notebook with a system, first of all, you couldn't just buy the notebook and use that. No, you had to wrap it in special paper. So you would keep it nice. I don't know why this is
They
a
made
thing.
us wrap it to take care of
Wrap
it.
all of our books and all of our notebooks. I understand the books. You wanna pass those on. The notebooks, though, they're made of paper, and we're wrapping it with more paper.
Yeah, that
Makes
thing is
no
getting
sense.
recycled the second I graduate this class.
Yeah, no one wants that. No one's saving that. Why am I protecting it with paper? Makes no sense. Anyway, and there was a system. You couldn't just like grab your pen and write down notes on a notebook. No, you had to put on a title in a certain color, underline it with red,
Oh my
then
god,
use
yes.
certain other colors for numbers. Another, and it had to be neat, tight. Your handwriting had to be impressive, very legible, and very clean. And then you would turn it in, like your note taking, you would turn that into the teacher, and they would review how like good or bad your notes looked. Like so first it was like your ability to take notes that was like being reviewed, but also the aesthetics of your notes. Like,
Yes.
did you use the right color for underlining? Did you use did you write in,
Did
like,
you
a clean
underline
way?
your
Did you
titles?
underline?
Because I
Is
didn't.
this how's your cursive? It was just such a complete versus, like, our binder situation. We were just writing notes and, like, handing in, sure, some homework or whatever, but mostly it's for you. Your note taking is for you.
Yes.
Not in Peru. Your note taking was for the
Your
teacher to
teacher.
evaluate, you to compare. Like there was such a
I
just a
hated that system.
oh, it was just so like, what? Why does it matter how I take notes? Oh, it matters. I don't know.
I have a distinct memory that you just brought up in my mind, which is one of the first times I had to hand in homework in
Mhm.
Peru. I wasn't aware that you handed in the entire notebook.
Right, you ripped out the page.
I ripped out the page
Oh
with my
god.
homework
No,
on it
that's
and
that's a
handed it to
big
the
no-no.
teacher. Big no-no, I got yelled at. I
Yeah.
got yelled at by my math teacher. Um,
What
she
is
wouldn't
this?
she wouldn't
Yeah.
accept my homework, and I was like, "But it's correct. Like, just the answers are there." She wouldn't take it. I
Yeah.
got like yeah, I missed that homework assignment, I guess, in her mind. But from then on, handed in the notebook and then got yelled at again because I only used 1 color ink.
Right.
I just used blue ink on everything, on titles, on and they're like, "How could you not use red ink?" And I'm like, "What? You're just giving me more stuff to d I don't need more." Like, this is my notes are great. I'm like one of the best students in the like, my notes are good, dude. I'm getting
Yeah.
great grades. Like, I don't this note my note system is working for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, got scolded at multiple
Yeah.
times because I
Presentation
was
was key.
yeah, and I'm not a big presentation girl, so
Oy. This week, we want to talk about explaining who you are. Basically, how, as immigrants, we package our stories so others can take away what you want them to so you're not misrepresented. For example, if you hear me speaking in Spanish, you might say, oh, she's from Mexico, when in fact, I'm from Peru, which is very different. Examples like these are pretty common occurrence and can sometimes create a need for us immigrants to explain who we are. Okay, so let's get into it. I think it really varies by audience, right? Who you're introducing yourself to, right? So, for
yeah.
example, when I was job hunting, in 2015, I wanted, and I had to explain so much like, oh, you need to sponsor me. I'm on this visa. Oh my gosh, like so many layers. But I want to make myself like sellable, right? I wanted to make my who I was quick and easy for them to understand so they would have time to understand my strengths and then also my visa situation. So I didn't want to add another layer of complexity. So I was like, I just want to explain who I am in the quickest and easiest way. So I would, oh, I was born in Peru, but moved to the US when I was 5. And I just left it at that. And then I
Yeah.
like,
We don't need more explanation. We don't need to complicate it more.
I didn't need to say I went back and did high school in Peru and then I came back. No, no, no. If they're gonna then get into it, like that is like my, maybe that's not with my HR screening call, right?
Right.
If when we get to like the follow-up interview or whatever, then you go into like, oh, I see on your resume that you worked in Peru, or I see, and then you get into it. Oh yeah, so I actually did college there, and then I came here for grad school. Like I always wanted to bring it back here to the US to something that's like under, but it was just like I would just less is more in that type of situation, right?
Yeah.
I would definitely find myself doing these like mental exercises of like, oh, like when someone asks you, oh, where are you from? And it's like, I just literally do like, which
Which
version am I gonna
story?
give?
Yes.
Which version am I
Which
gonna give?
how
Because
much? How much am I gonna
how
tell you
much?
right now?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
completely relate. I feel like this is something yeah, as an immigrant, you have to navigate and learn how to do. I've always thought of it as you know how you can't lie to kids? You're always supposed to tell them the truth, but you're just supposed to tell them, like, a more general version of the
Yeah.
truth,
Yeah.
and
Just
then
like
as they
keep
get
it simple.
older, then you can get more into the details of the truth. That's exactly how I viewed it. I'm like, "I'm never gonna
Hmm.
lie, I'm always gonna tell the truth,"
Yeah.
but it's just some people are gonna get the headline, some people are gonna get the headline first paragraph, some people are
Right.
gonna get first 2 paragraphs, and some people can read the whole article, you know?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
it's just gonna depend on the
Yeah.
situation, how much we know each other, how much time we have, all of these things, right?
Hmm.
Um, I do have to say that when I was thinking about this topic, as I looked back, I realized that I've only come to that conclusion that we just talked about, like, later in life. I wanna say
Hmm.
in my, like, late 20s, early 30s is when
Hmm.
I arrived there. And before, I didn't do that. I didn't package myself. I think I even actively, like, fought against it. And I think what I did instead was I simply withheld information and let
Mm.
the chips fall where they may. You've probably seen me do this because I did it all throughout
Yeah.
my 20s,
Yeah. Yeah.
which wasn't the best strategy, but I think I was just not very strategic. I was very like, well, this is who I am, and I'm just gonna, whoever I feel comfortable with, I'll tell them. And then if I don't feel comfortable, I'm not gonna tell you anything. Like, and
Right.
that's just where I'm at right now. And I have like a perfect example of this for anyone who's like, well, what do you mean you withheld information? I remember I was leaving a class. I was in college in Lima, leaving a class, and these two girls came up to me like they had also been in the class with me. And in that class, we had talked about a lot of we had used a lot of terms in English, right? And when they came up to me, they asked me, "Hey, where are you from?" And they asked it like very excited, but also like a bit kind of like judging. And I
Mm.
didn't like their vibe.
Yeah.
Also, they
Yeah.
had
Sometimes it comes with a
sometimes it's
vibe.
just the vibe. You gotta feel
Yeah.
out the vibes.
Yeah.
I didn't really like their vibe. They also had, like, kind of thick Lima accents.
Mhm.
Like, they definitely said, like, Cusco instead of Cusco, you know what I mean? And that
Mhm.
at that time, that gave me very much a snobby vibe. I don't
Mhm.
judge accents like that anymore, but at that time, I felt like, "I don't like these girls. They feel kinda snooty." I don't know. So I just when they asked me where I was from, I just said, "Trujillo." It just confused them a little because kids in Trujillo at that time weren't graduating high school with American accents, you know? As far as languages go, Lima was supposed to be much, much better in education in that sense, right?
Yeah.
So they were just confused. They insisted. They were like, "Oh, but where did you go to school?" And when they asked where I went to school, I was like, "I feel like I'm being profiled for status right now. And I don't want to be profiled for status. So I'm just going to double down." And I just said, "Oh, some school in Trujillo. You won't know it." Because, a kid from Lima, why would you know any of the schools in Trujillo's names?
Yeah.
And then that was it. That was the end of the conversation. They went, "Oh," and they kind of looked at each other and they walked away. And I remember thinking, good call. I those girls
Mhm.
don't feel like the kind of girls that I wanna hang out with. I don't feel like those were people that I wanted to give more information about myself
Mhm.
to. Um, so that felt good at the time.
Yeah.
But over time, I did realize I think also as I became more of, like, grounded in who I am and I accepted who I felt more confident in who I was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I that's when I feel like finally like, "Oh, anyone can come up to me and ask me where I'm from," and I'm like, "You got time? I can give you the whole story." You
Right.
know?
Right.
Like,
Right. Right.
but at that time in my early 20s in college, I still was feeling a little shaky about the messiness of all of my different cultural identities, and that I just navigated by withholding.
I think in the job hunt scenario, unless you're like working in an international organization or somewhere that just like has like a lot of diversity, a lot of, just foreigners working there, you're probably going to feel like I got to sell myself in a way that I fit in. And I think those mental, like it requires, like I remember doing like a whole like little elevator pitch on it, like on explaining who I was in a way that is digestible and
Mhm.
then especially for, like, that first, like, HR thing, the screening, because then you can kinda get more into it with, like, whoever is gonna be, like or not, maybe, who you're gonna be reporting to or whatever.
I feel like work is a very clear example, but
Mhm.
I found myself doing that for first dates.
Oh, for sure.
Because when
For
I
sure.
first yeah, when I first moved back here in 2022, once again, I'm from Peru, but you're gonna hear me speak like this, and you're gonna be like, "What do you mean you're from Peru? There has to be more behind that." And you were living until recently in Peru, and now you're here. So there's a lot to explain and to get through on a
Mm,
first date right off the jump. And
right.
in a first date, you don't wanna monopolize the conversation. You don't wanna go on a 30, 20-minute
Right.
spiel about your entire life, like, that's too much information.
Yeah.
So you have to make it, like, bite-sized and fast, but you also have to take care of all the questions they're gonna have pretty quickly. So yeah, on first dates, I would have my spiel ready, like and
Yeah.
just not give too many explanations. Forget all the why. I omitted all the
All the
whys.
whys,
All
yeah.
no
It's like
whys. There were no
and to
reason
be
for
honest,
anything.
sometimes it's like, "Oh, this is such a lift, like, I don't wanna do it." So
It's such a
sometimes
lift.
so
Sometimes you just pretend you don't. Like, we'll see if I like him. Let me just pretend to be American
Yeah,
for a bit, for like a
yeah.
tiny second. I feel like the burden of how much do I want to explain or how much do I want to get across of who I am is going to vary greatly depending on where you are, who you're with, and what your
Yeah,
objectives are in that moment.
for
So we were
sure.
first talking about like really high stakes situations like job interviews or like
Mhm.
first dates. First dates can be high stakes if you're like invested or whatever. Um, and those, because in those situations, you want to make a good impression.
Yeah.
So you're actively, that's where you're really like scratching your head the entire time, going like, "Oh, how do I say this? What do I do?" You're on your toes. But other times, like if you are just meeting some friends of a friend, you might be super chill. You're like not even thinking
Yeah,
about it. When it
this is
comes
true.
up, you'll do the split second thinking and that'll be it. And that's that. Um, or
Yes, this doesn't happen all the time. You're
no, it's
not
not something you're
constantly.
doing constantly.
That would be exhausting.
That would truly be exhausting. My God. But yeah, it's more on that level. And I feel like anyone can relate to this. You don't have to be an immigrant to do that kind of mental math of how you're presenting yourself. I feel like everyone does it.
And I think depending on the current situation of the country, depending where you're immigrating from, you're gonna feel like more like, "Oh, I gotta explain a little bit more," or "I gotta explain
Right.
a little bit less." Politics
Right.
play a role,
Exactly. Like
world circumstance play a role.
if you're in the state you just arrived to the US and Putin invaded Ukraine a month ago and you're Russian.
Oof,
Oh,
yeah.
honey,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
so
gonna be
sorry,
yeah,
but
you're
you're
in a tough
gonna yeah,
situation.
you're
Yeah.
gonna there's a lot of explaining that's gonna happen there. There might be some jokes at your expense.
And there might be some just, like, cold shoulders, and, like,
Yeah.
you there's nothing I mean, that's an uphill battle.
I just give thanks that, like, Peru isn't, like, in
I
the
know.
news negatively, like, we're not really out there, we're a low profile small country, and I'm like, "Great, that's good." I get to present it and not have to fight against any images, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
or barely, like, there'll still be sometimes I was like, "I knew a Peruvian," and usually I've heard positive,
Yeah,
usually.
usually they've heard about Machu Picchu, so they're like, "Oh, Peru, Machu Picchu, great."
I gotta say also, it's been, like, kind of fun when you're just, like, kind of only showing a little bit. You're just like, "Oh, I'm from Peru," right off the bat, like, "Where are you from?" "I'm from Peru." And then they, like, do a double take, and it's like, "Yeah,
'Cause they
I
wanna
can
ask about the accent.
speak.
They
I
wanna
can
ask,
speak
and
without
they
an accent."
yeah, no, 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 but the funny
It's
part
kinda
about
nice.
that
It's like, oh, like, it's a little bit of a surprise, you know?
yes, it's fun, but I also to me, at least for my own personal humor, I find it for me, it's very hilarious when you see the person's like,
Oh,
the wheels are spinning, and they don't
they're
know how
like
to ask it, or they don't know what to ask, and they're like
yeah.
they don't wanna offend you
I
by
sometimes
asking.
even, like, but I see them and I'm like, I did elementary school in the US, and sometimes I don't.
Oh, I
Sometimes
never
I'm
do
just
it. I always
I'm just
wait.
gonna
I always wait and I'm like,
Yeah.
what if I just answer what you ask? Like, I give you no more
Yeah.
information than what you're asking.
Yeah.
Will you get there?
You
Like,
wanna have
will
some
you?
fun. Yeah.
Because then sometimes they have to ask multiple questions to land at what they want.
Yeah.
And that's also
They don't wanna ask you,
fun.
"But where'd you learn" Some
Yeah.
some some have. Some like, "Oh, you speak with barely any accent. Thank you."
Oh man, one time this dude that I did not like was asking me that same line of questions, right? And he said, "Oh, but you have no accent." And I
Uh-huh.
said, "Oh, I have an American accent, you mean?" And he looked at me like I just spit on his face. He looked at me like I just insulted him because he's like, you could tell he was like, Americans don't have accents. That's what he was thinking. You could
Right,
see it in
right.
his brain, and the wheels were turning, and he looked insulted, and I was like, that's what you meant, sir. You meant I had an American accent. That's what you meant.
Love it.
Anyway, it ended there.
Oh.
Sadly, did not become friends. Let's do our current faves. This is a segment where we share something, either Peruvian or American, that we're currently loving, craving, or missing. My current fave is the Super Bowl, baby.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I've I've always loved the Super Bowl. Not since I was born. I got introduced to the Super Bowl when I was a little kid living in California. My dad used to watch. It was a popular thing. I currently root for both the Bills because that was dad's team,
Mhm, that's right.
and I root for the 49ers because we lived in California growing up, and
I also remember him rooting for the 49ers
yeah,
though.
because it was like we took it
Yeah.
on as the local team. Yeah. So 49ers and Bills, I root for both of them to this day. And I love the whole experience. I love that it's a 4 fucking hour event. I love the food. I love the beer. I love that you're just kinda catching up with friends, but then you're also always keeping an eye on the television. I love the halftime show. I love the commercials. This year, went and saw it at a bar, at a sports bar. It was rowdy. It was fun. People were, like, emotionally invested in the results, and it was hilarious to watch. My teams, none of them were there, so I was not invested.
Mhm.
During
Yeah.
the years that we lived in Peru, though, it was kinda rough. I
Yeah.
had
You can watch it.
oh, you can watch it, but I had very few
Oh,
people to share
no
this
one's
passion
watching
with.
it. Yeah, no one's
Yeah,
watching
and
it.
let me tell you, watching the Super Bowl on your own or watching even, like yeah, like, you don't want to no one wants to watch a football game by themselves on their, like, in their
I
house.
guess unless you're like a mega super fan who just like wants to see all the plays, you know? But like most people, I think it's a shared event. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shared passion. It's,
Mhm.
you do it with your friends. And in Peru, over time, I found some people that I watched
Mhm.
the Super Bowl with consistently every year. And that was a lot of fun, but it was still kind of a struggle because not everyone was available. Not everyone could always get together. It was usually like 3 or 4 people. It wasn't too many. And so I'm really glad that now I'm
Yeah.
back in the States where people
Oh, poof.
appreciate the
Yeah.
Super Bowl and they get just as excited as me. So I'm happy about that. I do have to say though, as much as I love the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
nothing gives me heart palpitations like Peru's like men's national football team.
Oh my God.
Like playing a classifying game for the World Cup or playing a game in the World Cup.
Oh my, playing a game in the World Cup, I cried. I cried.
Oh my God. Like I was
Like
visibly
when we sang the
shaking.
national anthem in,
The amount of, like my heart was bursting with joy and
joy,
pride, and I was
pride.
so happy for the players. I was looking at
Peru
them.
has a
Oh,
hard time qualifying for the World Cup, so when they made it after, like, I don't know, 30 years without having gone,
it was everything.
it was
Like, I
everything.
love the Niners, I love the Bills, but when I see
Oof,
Peru's national team play, I
yeah.
feel like I just bet my house on this game. I feel like my
Yeah.
reputation is on the line. I feel like my firstborn is on the line on this game. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's another level.
it's
It's
other
another
level,
level.
yeah, yeah. My current fave is pisco sours because I know
Ooh.
I had a few last weekend, last Saturday with some friends.
Where did you have them? Who made them?
There's, like, actually a good amount of bars here in DC that offer them, and they're, like, legit. They're really good. My husband also can really make a good batch, but we were at a bar. They had pisco sour on the menu. It was pisco sour day last Saturday.
Oh,
It was. So I was like,
it was.
"Well,"
Let's
and it's
celebrate.
and I had some, and it was delicious. And actually, I would take it even beyond just like sours. I'm really into sours, but because it was pisco sour day, I enjoyed a pisco sour last Saturday, or 2 or 3. It was really good.
Can I
They're
tell you a really heartbreaking story? I was in Paris, France with a friend of mine, Choni,
Mhm,
and we were at this really nice, fancy, schmancy rooftop bar,
mhm,
and we saw that on the menu it said pisco sour. And we're like, "Oh my
mhm.
god, should we? Like, we're 2 Peruvian girls abroad. Let's indulge." And this was a really nice, expensive place, so we're like,
Was it bad?
if it's on the menu, they have to know how to make it, or else that's not a
Oh,
common drink.
no.
That's not a
I know
drink
where you're
that's
going.
just in the menu. Bitch, they served us 2 glasses, and when they came out, they were red. The liquid inside
Oh,
them was red.
no.
So now that we've wrapped up the conversation, how did this land?
Such a fun conversation because there's so much thought that goes into, you know, what do I want this person to take away from my interaction? What do I want to be for this person? Like all of the thoughts that go through your head when you are
Mhm.
in milliseconds deciding, what am I going to say about myself, right?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, if all that is really needed. Like,
Like, if we're overthinking it?
yes, yes.
Probably. Isn't that what humans do every
Yeah.
day in every conversation?
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the, yeah, sure, we're presenting a certain way. And again, I go back to thinking about the job portion, like when you're interviewing or when you're, because I feel like stakes are higher there, like in a high stakes situation. That's when
Mhm.
you're going to put like a lot of effort meeting someone very important, introducing yourself for the first time for someone who's like has influence or, in your life or is a important decision maker in your life. And I wonder, like, I'm telling myself this story of how I want to present, but at the end of the day, yeah, do I really need to go through all these steps, jump through all these hoops, and should I just like be a little bit more just relaxed about it? You
I
know?
mean, I think if you can be relaxed about it, that's nice. But I also think when we talk about immigrants, there are certain layers you just have to get through. There's certain hurdles you have to climb over, especially like
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
especially
Yeah.
like we don't have you and I luckily don't have this because we lived here so young, but a lot of people have accents. And
Yeah.
that's like the first hurdle. Like before you even get to say anything about yourself, people
Yes.
are already judging you just when you say, "Hi, my name is Claudia."
Yeah.
If you say it with an
Appearance.
accent,
Appearance even.
appearance as well, like the color of your skin, how you look,
Yeah.
if how you dress, if it's not like typically American. Like, yeah, there are all these like hurdles that you have to get over that people are gonna look at you, take you in, and start forming judgments. And those
Yeah.
judgments don't necessarily all have to be negative, but there will be judgments. People will start deducing and being
Yes.
like, oh, who is this person? Oh, they have an accent. I wonder where they're from. When did they come here?
Stereotypes exist.
Yeah.
Yes.
How
Yeah.
long have they been? How long have they been
Mhm.
here? And there is still a lot of prejudice sometimes, just that comes from lack of awareness of people being like, oh, she's been here 10 years. Why does she still have an accent? And it's
Yeah.
like accents aren't something you can learn away.
There's accent coaches. There's people that actors and actresses who dedicate time and money to try to get rid or
And
fine
sometimes
tune.
they're terrible, man. We've
Yeah.
all seen those movies where it's like, I practiced for I don't know how many months. And it's like, babe, it still didn't show on camera
Right, right.
because it's a hard thing. So,
It's hard. It's hard.
yeah, I think I have a lot more empathy in that for those specific hurdles that are just like, they almost like appear before you can even get there, before you can even communicate what you want to communicate about yourself. There's already hurdles there and you know it.
We've made some improvements from when you and I were young to now. Like
Yes.
we now, like Latina is a word. Like we can use certain words. There are more of us here. It is easier to kind of explain who we are because there's just like more awareness of what Peru is. There is more just like so it's like I guess there's been evolution in a positive way for us, for Peruvians. So I'm just also, optimistic that
Mm.
it will get easier, that maybe as long as the reputation is good, right, for that country, that it will get easier to do that. That it maybe, the mental exercise will just become for generations, for future immigrants, that we are living in a world where people are immigrating to all sorts of part of the world. Like it's just more of a blend. And so that makes me a little bit more optimistic that
I guess, yes, it does make me also more optimistic.
taking it the other way around when we moved back to Peru and we were las gringas for all intended purposes,
Yeah.
we also had to explain that part, right? And we
Yeah.
had to fight against some preconceived notions. I think
Yeah, that we were snobby or
yeah, I
yeah.
bet that yeah, bet Americans are also fighting with that when they go to other places, Even when when I think about introducing like American friends to people back home, or like when I tell them, "Oh, my best friends in the US are XYZ." And I feel like there's some that have come to the US a bunch and like know that the US is super diverse, and there's people like being from California and being from New York and being from Texas and being from North Dakota are very different things, and like they different people represent those places, and then there's other people I have to really explain
That it's
who
different.
that yeah.
Something else that came to mind when we were talking about this topic of, like, presenting yourself to others was
Mhm.
that I don't know if this happened for you, but it did for me at least. Like, at first, it can feel disingenuous if you're, like, trying to package yourself.
Yeah, for sure,
It can
100.
feel like, "I'm not a product. Why am I doing this? Like, why do I need to pitch myself to other people? Like, can't I'm a multifaceted person. My
Yeah.
life is a bit complicated. Why do I
Yeah.
need to, like, make a summary? Like, why do I have to have, like, a log line or an elevator pitch about myself and my life?
That's what
Why
I was
can't"
getting at.
Yeah,
Yes.
why can't people just get to know me over time? Because it does but what strikes me about that is that it felt for me for a very long time, it felt disingenuous to try to package myself.
Mm.
And for a long time, I was like, "You know what? The people that make snap decisions about me, that think that I'm less than or that I'm not that smart because I'm from Latin America, or those who think I'm a snob because I speak English with an American accent, well, all those people just don't get to they get to miss out on me."
Yeah.
You know? And those who stick around and don't judge and get to know me slowly over time, well, they get to be my friends. And there's something that's still appealing to me about that approach.
For sure.
But I do understand now, because I didn't when I was younger, I do understand now that the benefits of learning how to package yourself and um, presenting certain key points of information about yourself quickly in order to get a quicker, fuller picture of who you are in certain circumstances. But to this day, I still feel pulled towards, well, you know what? If you judge, I have an accent when I speak English, I have an American accent. If in Peru, you're going to judge me for that and you're going to categorize me as something negative because of that, fine.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna try to, like, communicate something different or try to give you a better, fuller picture. I'm gonna be like, "There's a part of me that is like, you can keep thinking that.
Yeah.
You
And
can
like
just keep thinking
I'll
that
pull out my
forever."
popcorn and just watch.
Yeah. I will never,
Yeah.
like I will never try to correct you. Because you know how it's like the prove them wrong gene?
Yeah. No,
The
I
prove
get
them
it.
wrong gene does not exist within me. It
Yeah.
is not strong within me. There's people out there that are like, "Oh, they said I'd never make it, and I made it. Look at me now. I showed them." And I'm like, if someone says I'd never make it and then I make it, I would never tell that bastard. I would let them think that I'm still nobody, and I would just, and if I run
Right.
into them in my hometown, I'd be like, "Yeah, keep ignoring me. Keep thinking I'm nobody. I get the win because I know I made it."
You're a bigger person than me.
Really? I think it sounds petty as all hell. I think it sounds like the
Oh,
pettiest little thing.
I mean, no, because like, what do you like? That sounds healthy. Like that sounds like you actually let go for real. Where someone is like, oh, here you go, boom!
Oh,
I
really?
can't wait to throw it in your face.
So that wraps it up for today. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and check us out on Instagram at Where We Land Pod. Hasta la vista, babies.
Ciao, ciao.
At Where We Land, we know some immigrant experiences are harder than others, especially for those in the margins of our current legal system. If you would like to help, we encourage you to support organizations that provide services for immigrants and champion their rights. You can find a list of organizations in the show notes.